every one of you individually and on the band as a whole, and how do you start writing a song?
Perhaps the greatest musical influence, at least at the start for the band, was probably Rodrigo and Gabriela, who we played some shows with earlier or at the end of last year, dating all the way back to 2011 or 12, so right at the beginning of the band. And also for myself, there were a lot of videos and stories about them traveling all over Europe, particularly in the UK and Ireland and France, and they were playing street music a lot. And so those stories and those videos of them performing and watching all that had a huge influence on me leaving. Gogol Bordello did as well, actually. I was watching a lot videos of Gogol Bordello, Rod Gab. But then, of course, I think for me, musically, I was influenced pretty heavily by classic. I was trained classically, so for sure there. But growing up in the States, I listened to a lot of my friends were big concert goers and big festival goers, so bands like the Chili Peppers and Sublime, Fish as well, String Cheese Incident, Yonder Mountain String, bands that had, kind of this Americana folk influence, but also a lot of funk, rock. My influences come from all over the place. And I think also a band I listened to a lot was stuff like Audioslave, and Muse. I was a huge Muse fan for a while. I really like how Muse takes kind of classic opera and mixes it with rock and electro as well. I think that's, for me, one of the coolest things, when you can mix all those different genres. That's something I'm really influenced by and love.
I think, to put it really simple, I'm a rock guy. I love rock and roll. I listen to bands mostly like Queens of the Stone Age, Foo Fighters, Billy Talent is one of my all-time favorites, Audioslave, like Bennett, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea's a massive influence on my playing, Led Zeppelin as well. Everything that came out of the 60s and the early 70s I love. Right now I think what we're doing as a band, though, is I think we're not only focusing on what music influences us, but also the stories, because we're coming up with like short stories. So we're really also going deeper into our personal lives of like topics that we really like sci-fi. So the first story that we're writing is about going into space and exploring new territories. So that's also kind of cool to have that, to not only take our musical backgrounds into our writing process, but also like our other interests. But coming back to my musical influences, I started kind of as a rock guy. Like the first bands that I played in were rock and roll all over the place. But then I started studying jazz and popular music, so I learned a lot of music theory thanks to jazz, and it's still helping me a lot to know these things, and it still influences me in my writing. Just don't want to make it too complicated. I'm a simple guy. Also, I like simple music, man. Yeah. It's just, I don't know, I've never liked complicated music. Like, I listen to it, and I'm like, cool, the guys can do it, they can play fast, it's everything, it's all cool. But what really touches me is simple stuff. And last thing I want to say, I think the most beautiful instrument on this earth is the human voice. A band can be really amazing, and they can be all great players. When I don't like the voice, I'm like, nah, this band is not for me. So yeah, I'm glad we don't have a singer, eh?
Alright, so the first music I kind of got into was definitely rock and roll. My cousin showed me Guns N' Roses and Motorhead and stuff like that. So I was into rock from an early age. Growing up in Ladbroke Grove in like West London, then a heavy influence of reggae music, UK garage, I don't know, like house music, all sorts of stuff. Used to DJ, used to make my own kind of beats. Lots of hip hop in the late 90s, early 2000s. Since then, I mean, anything. It doesn't really matter. I don't really have a genre. I don't really genre or anything. I've got lots of favorite artists like the classics, the Bob Marleys, the Michael Jacksons, all the Beatles, all those sort of people. But there's also lots of undercover people that I go after. Lots of my friends as well. I just anything. Absolutely.
What about on your personal play?
Personal playlist is always a bit of Rodrigo and Gabriela. Absolutely. Lots of Rodrigo and Gabriela. Thievery Corporation. There's a new band called Altin Gun that I like. So no, I like a lot of instrumental mixed with vocals, but not vocals the whole time. New sorts of stuff. Turkish psychedelic rock is my new kind of thing I'm definitely listening to. Love that sort of stuff.
Does that influence you playing as well? Or what do you think influences and shapes the way you play the most?
From back in the day, it was more just like hip hop and reggae kind of stuff, and UK garage kind of those sort of grooves and beats. Definitely influences my style of play, and drum and bass, jungle, definitely.
Well,
Okay,
influences.
Okay, I think
have shaped you.
That's a really tough and interesting question, but I started playing guitar, and actually I didn't listen to music like that much until I was 10 probably, which is kind of weird. I like Britney Spears then, but I was a big fan. I started playing guitar when I was 12, and then I really got into grunge, like Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and a lot of 60s, 70s rock, like The Doors, like all these Jimi Hendrix cliche, stereotype, typical things. And I listened to only that for years. Like my guitar teacher would be really mad at me because I would just want to play like Nirvana chords. That's all. Jimi Hendrix seemed way too complicated for me, so I never dared to actually try it. But I really liked like all this hippie rock stuff. And as time went on, I was more into like indie music. By 2004 or 5, I was only listening to like indie stuff like the Arctic Monkeys, The View, etc. That really shaped my guitar playing because I like really simple pop songs on guitar where the sound is nice. I don't really care too much about if it's complicated, but the sound has to be nice. Really. I'm a sucker for guitar sounds and drum sounds. And again, as time went by and passed, I was more into like indie ambient post rock stuff, like big sounds, lots of instrumental delay, space sounds, space rock too. Yeah, it's a proper musical journey for me. And I always kept listening to what I liked before. Then I was heavily into reggae when I was 17. For a year, I was only listening to reggae for some reason. Shout out to Bob Marley. I have to say, like after joining the band, my horizon even got broader because I was introduced to a lot of music I probably didn't listen to before. I knew gypsy jazz, obviously, but I wasn't really into it. And I think it's kind of like a boring answer, but now I really like everything that I like. Everything that I like is something that I listen to. It could be pop music, could be Katy Perry, or something even more generic. Sorry, it's a terrible word, but yeah, like chart music. But still, what I like the most is probably indie and 60s, 70s rock and psychedelic rock. I think psychedelic, indie, ambient, fast guitar, stoner pop would be everything I listen to on purpose.